So guys, welcome to the second video of the Golang and JWT authentication tutorial. In the first video, we started building up our main.go file, and Ola Dejo, who is a viewer on my YouTube channel, has said that the capital RUN function won't work, and he's right. Actually, I checked the Gin documentation, and the function actually has to be only capital R, and then UN is small, and this is an actual function in the Gin library documentation. So this is one small mistake I had made in the previous video. Please check it out and correct it in your own code. But everything else is perfectly fine, perfectly all right. And now we can start building on the other things in this project. So we had created two files in routes, one file in models. Now we'll create the helpers file. So we'll say auth helper.go, and we'll say token helper.go. Then we'll also create our database connection file. So we'll say database connection.go, and in our controllers we'll say user controller.go. Now after your main.go file, usually you would want to work on your routes. That's what I recommend usually, right? So let's start working on our routes. So this is package routes, and we'll import a couple of things. And obviously we will need github.com/Gin-Gonic. That's something we need to create the routes. And we'll need to import our handler, our controllers as well. So we'll do that later on. But for now, let's go ahead and create our auth routes function. Let me close the other files just to remove the clutter. So the auth routes function is this function that we've already called in our main.go file. So that's the exact function that we're working on right now. And it basically accepts incoming routes. Sorry, the O is small, incoming routes. And we'll give a reference to Gin engine. So we'll have incoming routes dot post, and then again we'll say incoming routes dot post. And here I'm just going to simply define my sign up and login routes. So I'll say users/sign up. I've already shown you how to use these routes in the Postman. So it's sign up and login routes. And in our controller file, we'll have functions to handle our sign up. Similarly, we'll have users/login, and in our controller we'll have login function, and we'll say controller, and here we'll say Golang JWT project/controllers. Just like we imported routes package, we have imported the controller package in this file. Let's work on our user routes. So you go to your user router.go file, and here we'll obviously import a couple of things. We'll have Gin-Gonic, and we'll definitely have our controller, and we'll also need our middleware in this case. So I have to create a middleware folder if I have not already done that. Let me check. Yeah, I can't see a middleware folder, so I need a middleware folder as well. Inside the middleware folder, you'll need auth middleware.go file. So we'll say auth middleware.go. So here you'll say Golang JWT project/middleware. So the user routes function is again the same that we've already referred to here in our main.go file. And as you can see, we're just passing it our entire router here. So that's why when we say incoming routes, we are passing a reference to gin.engine. And as I've already shown you, there are two routes for users. One is the /users route to get all the users, and there's a /user/id route, which is to get a particular user by ID. So here we'll say incoming routes dot use. Now here I want to use my middleware, and the reason I'm using a middleware is to ensure that both these routes are protected routes. All right. With your authentication or auth routes, sign up and login, these are not protected routes because the user does not have a token at this point of time. But after login, the user will have a token, and that's what we want him to use in our users route. He should not be able to use the users route without logging in or without having a token. All right. And so the project that I'm showing you is like a very basic bare bones project. After login, you can just get the users, but you could have a complete library management system, or you can have your e-commerce, anything, but all of those routes that will come as part of e-commerce or library management system or anything like that will all be protected out here using the middleware. And here we'll say incoming routes dot get, and I have again incoming routes dot get. So the first one is /users, and I want to use the controller.getUsers function to handle this. We don't have this function yet, but we'll be working on it. And here we'll say users and user ID, so that we can send a specific user ID and access data of that particular user. And here I'll say get user. Perfect. So our main.go file is ready, auth router file is ready, user router file is ready, and our models file is ready. Now what we can do is, since from our main.go file we have gone to routers, from routers we can go to controllers. So we can either go to controllers and we can start working on the controllers, or we can work on our database connection. So whatever you can do any of these two things. So what I'll do, I think I'll work on my database connection, and then I'll go over to my controllers. So I'll come to my database connection file. I'll close the other files for now, and here I'll say package database, and I'll import a couple of files that I'll need here. The function that I want to use is going to be called funcdb instance. Just make sure you get the spelling of instance right. It returns a Mongo client simply. All right, and we're going to have a .environment file. So we'll use the go.environment package for that. So for now, I'm going to say I need fmt, I need log to log out errors. I'm going to use time and OS as well. You'll see soon why. I definitely need the context package. I need the go.environment package to work with the environment variables. So I'll say joho/go.env. If you have not seen the other videos on my channel, I have more than 100 videos on Golang. You can check them out. I've covered all of these packages in detail in so many other tutorials. And then we have our MongoDB driver, go.mongodb.org/mongodriver/mongo/options. So since we already have our go.environment library, let's use it. So let's say go.environment.load. We'll use the load function to load up our .environment file. If there's an error, which means if error is not equal to nil, we'll log.fatal, This log library is what you're using to log out any fatal errors. We'll say error loading the .env file. All right, and we'll create a variable called MongoDB, D capital, and we'll use the OS package to get the environment for MongoDB URL. Speaking of which, I think it's the right time to actually create our .env file. So we'll say .env, and in my .env file I just need two things: port. I can write any port here, so here if you see I'm getting port as well, right? So my port variable I have to define here, and in my database connection.go file I'm using the MongoDB URL. So here I'm going to say MongoDB URL. So usually any MongoDB URL starts with MongoDB, and in my case it's localhost 27017. I'm using it on Ubuntu, but you could be running MongoDB on Docker, or you could be having your own completely managed MongoDB instance on Robo. I think it's called Mongo Robo or something like that. Whatever you use, just get your MongoDB URL and put it here. Then this is the name of the database. Even if this database doesn't exist in your MongoDB, doesn't matter. MongoDB works in a way where if the database doesn't exist, it creates it for you. Now going back to database connection file, here we'll say mongo.new client. Sorry, this is supposed to be small, N capital, EW small, client, and here you'll have options dot client dot apply URI, and here you'll pass your MongoDB variable that you've just defined out here. Okay, and you're going to capture this in a variable called client, or you can also capture the error out here itself. If error is not equal to nil, you're going to log out the error. And now we'll use the context package. So we'll say context dot with timeout, and we'll say context dot background comma 10 multiplied by time dot second, and we'll capture that in CTX and cancel. And we'll use the defer function to call cancel at the end of this function, and then we'll just use context to connect to our client. So we'll say client dot connect, and we'll pass context here. We already have context which has a timeout value, and here again we'll try and capture the error if there's any error, and we'll print out the error. So we'll say if error not equal to nil, log dot fatal error. If everything goes well, then we'll just print out connected to MongoDB. I think DB can be made into capital, and from this function this client is what you'll return, and that's basically the Mongo client, the reference to it, which we are returning from this function. And your DB instance function is complete. Here we can also have variable called client, which is of type mongo.client, which will be equal to DB instance. So this basically the Mongo client. We call this function, it returns a Mongo client, and this we've captured in this variable called client, which is of type Mongo client. Perfect. Now we're going to use a function to access a particular collection in the database. So we'll say func open collection, and collection name string. So you can pass a particular collection here and then you can use it. So we'll say mongo.collection is what will be returned from this function. So this function basically returns a particular collection. And we define a variable called collection, which is of again type mongo.collection. So we'll say client.database. And we can define the database here. We can define the name of the collection. Sorry, this is open bracket and close bracket. And we simply return the collection here. Now this database can be the database that you get in your, let's say you created a fully managed database, right, in a MongoDB instance in the cloud, for example. So the database that you'll get will be mostly like cluster 0 or something, cluster 1 or something like that, right? You'll get your own cluster. So let's just write cluster 0 here for the time being. And this completes our database connection.go file. Now we can also start working on our controllers. So we'll head over to controllers and the user controller.go file. And here we're going to call it package controllers. And we're obviously going to import quite a few packages here. And we're going to have a few functions like hash password function. We're going to have our verify password function. We're going to have our sign up function. We're going to have a login function. Sign up spelling is wrong. And we're going to have get users and get user function. Where am I getting these functions from? These are basically these functions, right? So in your controller you have sign up function, login function, and get users and get user function, right? So we'll say func get users func get user. So these are the functions that we need to work on. So we'll import context here, fmt log string convert net/http time, and we obviously need Gin-Gonic, so we'll say Gin-Gonic/Gin, and I also need the validator, so I'll say github.com/go playground/validator/v10, and we'll have to get our helpers from this package. So I'll say Golang JWT project/helpers. We'll also need our database and our models. So let's say the same thing, Golang JWT project/models and Golang JWT project/helpers. And then to hash our password, we'll need crypto/bcrypt. All right, so these are all the packages I need. And I also need some MongoDB packages as well, so I'll install them later on. And here let's create our user collection. Mongo/collection is equal to database dot open collection. So open collection is the function that we just wrote together, and here we'll pass the database client. Name of the collection is user, and I'll create a variable called validate, and I'll use validator that I've just installed here, the package, and I'll say new. Okay, so guys, I'll have to keep this video short. I think it's over 20 minutes already, and in the next video I'll have to continue this. I really apologize, but I have some other commitments, so I'll have to keep this video short, and in tomorrow's video we'll just continue this. So thank you for being patient, and thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next episode. Do subscribe to this channel, and see you. Bye.